All right, so the question is regarding fear. There's many types of fear. There's fear of criticism, fear of failure, fear of lack of information, um, fear of, there's a lot of fears. So how does one can overcome fear?
Number one, you have to realize that fear is an ingredient of the whole overall mixture. And the other ingredient is hope. So when these two components come together and you have just enough fear and just enough hope, you have a good mixture. You have the equation to create success. Now, what do I mean by this? Fear makes like a small little mountain seem like Mount Everest. And hope takes Mount Everest and makes it seem like it's a small little mountain for you. So you gotta be very careful with that. So there's a misconception in perception. Depending if you have too much fear, you'll look at a small little hill like it's Mount Everest. And if you have too much hope, you look at Mount Everest and it's like a small little hill. So you gotta be very careful there. And when you have the right components and you just have just enough fear and just enough hope, you'll have good perception of reality and what's really happening. Now, what does hope do and what does fear do? Fear is pretty much precaution. It gives you an understanding that, okay, be careful. And it opens up your awareness. Hope creates ambition, drive, persistence, not to give up. Those are the two components. This is what they give you. Now, to move to the next point, you have to look at your personality and how you use hope and fear. And this is how it works. Now, if you draw a circle and you put your knowledge inside that circle, the edge of it is the edge of your personality. Now, number two is fear and hope sit on the outside edge of your personality. Now, what happens when something is fearful? If we have too much fear, we retreat. We have a lot of hope, we push forward. If you just have just enough fear and just enough hope, you'll have the right equation to create success in terms of moving despite the fear and not having too much hope where you're rash. This is essential in your thinking. Now, when you do this right, you will constantly be pushing the edge of your personality in terms of growth. And you're constantly expanding that and pushing that envelope of who you are. But you're not being too rash and you're not being too subtle where you don't move or you retreat to the inside of the circle where there's security. So that's essential in what you're trying to understand yourself in terms of pushing the fear and moving despite the fear. The last point here, if you really look at this and you really understand it properly, this is what will happen. You'll get to a point where now you will, when you get in this position, automatically you will make a decision that I'm gonna move forward. I'm not gonna retreat. That's the number one thing you have to do. I'm not gonna retreat to security. I'm actually gonna move despite the fear. That's number one. Number two is I have to create a plan to make sure that I move from point A to point B, meaning the edge of my circle to the next edge that I wanna get to. I have to create a plan of how to get there. And number three is now when you learn these components, what happens to you? You have an amazing attitude towards life. You start driving yourself at a whole nother level and you will never look down at a situation or condition or a challenge. You will always be looking up and you'll be saying, you know what, I'm gonna climb this because this is my next challenge and this is where my personality needs to get to in terms of my own maximum potential. And you will move despite the fear.